Roby Kelly.
And I'm Jessica Arn.
And we'd like to introduce you to our next journey here at Christ Community Church. My wife, Grace, and I, and our family have been involved here at CCC for about 8 years. We've been impacted by our men's ministry, our women's ministry, student ministry, life after loss, and various life groups. And it's been a big growth curve for us in our relationship with Jesus and living in His kingdom.
Patrick and I and our family moved here 5 years ago this month by way of the military. Some dear friends of ours invited us to join them at their church, and so we came, we filled out that New Here card, and within a week we were called by one of the pastors here. And it was that intentional phone call that began our journey here at CCC. We've been blessed, encouraged, sharpened, and matured in our 5 years here as part of this community that for us has really become more like family. The impact of that phone call began a cascade that has rippled through our lives and beyond. And our intentional God has brought each of us here on purpose for a purpose. We've all been impacted by God's work through this community, through the kingdom of believers. And as we're in the midst of this series of focusing on the kingdom and the kingdom of Jesus, focusing on the impact and the value of what happens when we follow Him, we want to invite you to join us on a new journey that we're calling the ripple effect. We're talking about the ripples that flow from that first moment when God's will, word, and spirit impact us. In these next few moments, we'd like to take you with us on a very quick journey to see some of the ripples of Christ Community Church, those that have been behind us, some of the ripples that we're standing in right now, and the ripples that we prayerfully hope are in front of us.
And while the Kelly family has been here quite a while, we recognize that God's work through CCC started well before us. A small group of families began praying back in 2000 about the impact they wanted to see in the Sumter community and beyond. That led to the beginning of Christ Community Church Sumter. There was a specific passion to reach people who weren't engaged in a church and who weren't pursuing a relationship with Jesus. From a house, then moving to the YMCA, then to Nettles Auditorium at USC Sumter, and then on to Patriot Hall. That group grew and God was doing an incredible work. People who had no interest in Jesus found themselves not only interested, but committing themselves to the way of Jesus. It's a great picture of ripples moving powerfully outward to others.
That's right. And in 2015, the decision was made to build our current facility. CCC people then gave and sacrificed, and the doors were open for our first service here on December 4th, 2015. The ripples expanded even more. Having our own facility, our own space, allowed so much more ministry to be able to take place throughout the week here on campus. And God's people here were allowed the ripples of the kingdom to affect their own lives and then into the lives of others. Now, Roby, I know that you and I both recognize that what we get to enjoy, the things we get to be a part of here at CCC was really built by God's impact and people willing to step out in faith, those people that have come before us. And so those are some of the ripples of the past that have brought us to where we are today.
And that's right, and the ripples of today are strong. We just finished another year of the Advent conspiracy, and CCC's reach both in Sumter and around the world is growing. We have partners here in Sumter, but also in Africa, South America, Central America, and Europe.
And our kids ministry here is vibrant and Christ-focused. And as a mom of 3 kids and as a volunteer in that ministry, I can passionately say that I am so grateful for the love and the truth that is poured into our kids every week. And the number of young lives that are being impacted through that ministry alone has grown year by year.
320 Students also is thriving, meeting on Sunday nights and then in growth groups throughout the week. The reach of our student ministry goes well beyond families here at CCC. We expanded the shed back in 2019, which enabled the growth we've seen there.
And that expansion also has been a great venue for both our men's and women's ministries, which meet there throughout the week for Bible studies, fellowships, lunches, and more. Which also reminds me of our life groups. And life groups meet in the community, in homes, but also many of them use our church facilities here to meet. The impact of life groups has been profound as people connect with other people and we walk this journey side by side.
And that's just here in Sumter. God is also growing Christ Community Church in Camden. And week by week, we're hearing of people there coming back to church or coming to church for the first time, hearing the life-changing message of the gospel. These are exciting times because we're right in the midst of the ripples of what God has chosen to bring here among us.
That's right. Well, enough of us telling you about these ripples. Let's hear it from a few people themselves about how God has impacted them through the ripples of CCC.
So my name is Anna Catherine Birch, and I live here in Camden with my husband, Bill. And we have been here it'll be 9 years in January. We actually had been going to a local church here in Camden, and really we started to kind of just lose interest in the church. And when COVID hit, we didn't go for a while. And Bill and I were kind of talking with each other and felt like we needed to go ahead and find another church.
We were like a lot of folks coming out of COVID. There was a break between the normal routine of going to church, and it gave us pause about why we were going to church, where we were going to church, and what we needed out of church. And so during that time where there was kind of that separation, we had an opportunity to evaluate what we wanted from our church. And so when we came here, this was you come in and it's very welcoming, it's very inviting. And so that's made the transition the easiest for us. And that's where it starts, right? You get a good handshake, you get a very good welcome, and then just come through the door. And I think us being so small and intimate makes that available to people. You're not going up and there's these big columns and big double doors. It's very, come on in. And I think that's the thing that helps. It's very welcome.
The other thing that we really love about this church is the community. The minute that I walked through that door, I knew it was where I was supposed to be. I had been praying for us to find a church. And basically, I walked through the door and I know the Holy Spirit is speaking to me when I get really teary-eyed. It's just the way that I know. And that immediately hit as soon as I walked through that door. So I knew that this was the place that we were supposed to be. To me, it's very exciting. I love that about this church is that Bill and I can be a part of it from the ground up. And that's just makes me so happy. It gives me a purpose in a church. And I've never had that either, where we get to come in every day and see the people that we love, our community, and give hugs and talk and fellowship and really work towards a common goal to have Camden receive Jesus Christ.
I'd suffered different things, moving back and forth and dealing with parents that are addicts and a lot of fighting in my household. There was just no stability. And I'd heard about Jesus. My mom had told me, Jesus, and then if you do this, you go to hell. And I never saw anybody read the Bible or go to church or actually follow what Jesus told us to do. So I never really understood sin or had no concept of what that really meant. I went out into the world after having that kind of upbringing, and I really didn't know how to live, to be not the right way. And one day I finally hit a low. I was homeless. I was on the verge of losing the job that I had. My daughter wasn't even with me. My mom was taking care of her for me because I knew I wasn't up to the task at the time. And I had gotten a DUI. So I was really at the end of my rope. I had met my husband, who is now my husband at the time, and I cried out to God. I was in my car and I finally got to the point where I realized I couldn't change no matter how much I wanted to. I realized I didn't want to be that person anymore. And I cried out to God. I said, whoever made this, please help me because I can't do this alone anymore. I can't do it. The next day, I moved in with my now husband. Within a week, I had a new job. I had begun to detox from alcohol. I got rid of my old friends groups and the ones that were doing things that I really shouldn't and didn't want to do. But we got Lifeline. God has that way of always helping you right at the moment that you don't think you can take anymore. And we came to Sumter. And we lived with my grandparents for a month or two, and we got on our feet and we got a little place. And it was strange. It was for 3 months, every night I was crying myself to sleep. And I was just thinking, it was the first time in my life I ever had this thought in my mind that I might go to hell. And it came through my mind. I said, if this is true, I know where I'm going, And all of a sudden, this amazing powerful presence came over me. And I was just sitting in a chair. Everybody else was asleep, and I was alone reading, and this powerful presence came over me, and I just started weeping. I mean, I was weeping like a baby. I never cried like this in my life through everything, all the things I'd experienced. But it wasn't a sad cry. It was like a release of everything. And I laid there, and it was like 4 hours. I laid there and I just cried, and I was getting just the understanding that he is real. Shortly after I felt that presence, my husband noticed a big difference in me. One day we were listening to worship music, because I have this whole new world of worship music that I didn't know existed. And my daughter was in the car with me, and she looked over and she was crying. And I said, "Is the song making you cry?" She said, "No, Mom." She goes, "Ever since Jesus came into your life, you're so much different. You're so much better." And I asked her, I said, "Well, did you ever pray for me when things were bad?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, he answered your prayers." And then we both started crying, and it was just this entire thing. Once I started reading the Bible a little bit, and I started seeing what God wanted me to know, I prayed for him, "Please bring me a community of believers that love you as much as I do." And the next day, I just looked up non-denominational churches, and in my career, I specifically asked for community. The first one that pops up is Christ Community Church. So I was just kind of nervous about what I was, going to experience, but right away, we were greeted. We met Caleb, and, he was like the first person we met here. And I was like, "Wow, the worship's really good. The child care, that was a big thing for me, because I felt safe. I felt like my kids were safe, that I didn't have to worry about them. I saw the way it was set up, and I felt very comfortable. And I know I'm not alone, and I have this community, and my kids get to learn about Jesus, and they get to learn about God, and I get to be around other people's kids and teach them about Jesus and God. And I think that's really important that we have that, because if I would have had that, I think that would have helped me a lot growing up in my life, to have that sense of community, and to have that sense of this is right and this is wrong, and this is what God wants from you. We're so thankful for Todd and Mark and everybody here, and Missy. She's so great. And ever since I started, volunteering with the kids, that's brought me so much joy. I told her, I was like, "I'll do it every Sunday." Be a puppy too. But it really has brought me a lot of joy, and my children love coming here. And my husband wants to be more involved, and we never volunteered, I think, a day in our life. And now we're, giving, like my daughter said to me the other day, she's like, "Mom, you never gave money to homeless people before. I'd ask you to, and you'd say, we don't have enough." And now she's like, "Now you always do." And I swear, I said, "Well, Jesus changed my heart." And I think that's one of the best ways, if I could leave anyone with anything, the best way to make people believe in Jesus and to help them believe is to show it through your actions. And that when we show love, it's not just enough to say, "I love you." You have to show someone that you love them. So that's all I'm trying to do. And I fail him daily, but he's never failed me. So
all of that excites us tremendously about the new ripples that lie ahead for us. Thus, this campaign that we're introducing today, the Ripple Effect.
We have some needs because of the growth that God has brought us, and because of the ministries that lie ahead. Let's lay out 4 of those. First, when we built the current facility, we knew our kids' ministry would one day outgrow it. Our building was designed with just that in mind. We're at that place now, as on any given Sunday, our kids' ministry is partly housed in our student ministry building. We'd like to get all of them back under one roof. To do that, we would love to expand our kids' ministry area by adding 4 larger rooms, along with restrooms and storage.
Second is our need for life group space. Both the number and the size of life groups has continuously expanded. And while we praise the Lord, we're so grateful for the work He's doing through that ministry, it also has added a little bit of difficulty to accommodate. And so one of the exciting things that expansion of our kids ministry area will give us is more space to host life groups here on campus. Same building, multiple uses.
A third need we've already been shouldering is the startup funding for CCC Camden. Our model for planning CCC Camden has been that she will one day be self-funded and autonomous. To get us there, we knew that we would attempt to raise funds for the startup costs, which go above our current operating budget in Sumter. All to say, as CCC Camden soon rents space at a school and expands, we're wanting to help boost that growth with funding to help get that started. 10% of what we raise during this campaign will be used to fund CCC Camden.
And this leads us to our last need. This is a campaign to do more than just raise money. We're doing what we feel led, where we feel God is leading, so that the kingdom of Jesus, the ripples that we've been impacted by, will continue moving out into our near future. The ripple effect is our desire to fund those 3 endeavors that we've just shared with you, but also prayerfully, after those needs are met, to help continue paying down our current mortgage on this facility. All of our first money raised will be to pay for the addition to the kids' ministry and life group space and the startup funding for CCC Camden. Anything over that will be to continue paying down our mortgage.
And that's where we need you, the people of CCC. Chances are very high that as you've listened to this, you've recognized that you too have been impacted by some ministry here at CCC. We're not asking you to pay for what you've already received. We're asking you to let the ripples continue to be used by God, just like those many people over the past 2 decades, sacrificially and prayerfully giving so that others can be impacted as well.
That's right. Following the service, you can find packets in the lobby to help explain more of the logistics, to help with some visuals about what we hope to do in that expansion, and answer what we know are going to be some much anticipated questions. But in there, you will also find a way that you can let us know if this is something you will covenant with us to help make happen. We're asking each of us CCC people to prayerfully consider what God is calling you to do in response to how He has impacted your life through CCC. And we're asking you to let us know this by Sunday, February 11th, what your covenant level might be.
And who knows, maybe 20 years from now, someone will be looking back at what we're doing now, saying how thankful they are that we let the ripples continue.
Hey, well, we have been walking through this whole adventure of the ripple effect and all that we're doing with that. Now, we also anticipate, and we have talked quite a bit about a lot of questions that people might have, and we might get a lot of the questions that people have, but just fire out some questions that you think, and we've talked through, that people have about this whole capital campaign.
Well, my personal first question was, we've gone through FPU, we've been members of it. And so when you say that you need money and we already have debt, it puts this kind of doubt in our mind, like, should we have debt? Should a church operate in debt?
With that dirty word, debt. Yeah. So as a church, we operate with debt, I think, the way most people think of debt as well. Most people that think wisely. We are totally opposed to operational debt. Meaning, like, as a family, we don't go in debt for gifts and gasoline and groceries and just to kind of go day to day. We don't go in debt for that. We're tolerant, but we're tolerant of, but we prefer not to be in debt in any way. But we're okay with, like, a mortgage payment. We as a church view that the same way. That we do not do operational debt. None of our budget is covered by any debt. Hasn't been, is not now, never will be. But we're okay with facility debt, mortgage payment, and that's where we are right now. We're okay with that.
Mark, there certainly have been better times to borrow than now. Why borrow now? I'm sure the question will come up with some people. Why now with interest rates as high as they are right now?
Yeah, and then in particular, why borrow when we already have a current debt as well? Our thought is that as we have done as we're doing the campaign, we look at what we're doing to take on more debt as a very short term. Obviously, it depends on the amount that people give and the pace at which they give. But we think that this will be a very short-term debt, 3 years or less, at an interest rate that we don't like, but we think in 3 years we'll be done with that. We also would love to be able to pay down the low interest rate. What our debt right now is a very low interest. We'd love to be outside of that as well. And by the way, if we don't do anything in raising funds for our for our low interest rate debt right now, we'll have paid it off the end of 2029. Again, we're going to pick up a little bit of debt that we think is going to be about 3 years and be over that.
And we'll pay that off by 2029. We also have a building fund balance that's sizable that we could almost pay that off if we needed to or wanted to, correct?
Right. Yes. So
Paying like a mortgage.
yes,
On that this whole time.
we do. And one of the benefits, I think, of paying all the debt, if we could get rid of all of the debt, the amount of money that frees up annually for us to do ministry is really important for us to. So again, I'd love for us to be able to pay for everything we're talking about. I would really love for us to be able to get into that low interest rate that we're in right now.
Well, another question that I had early on was, if you were to come into our children's ministry and you drop your kid off at any given classroom on any given Sunday at any of the three services, you may find a classroom that looks very empty, like there's only 8 kids. And so the question kind of arises of, is this a real need? Do we really need this space?
Well, tell me about your last Sunday. We're talking just a few days ago, you're dropping off of children.
Well, I was serving in children's ministry in the 3-year-old class, and we only had 8 kids in our 3-year-old room. But we dropped our 4-year-old son off at his classroom, and that classroom was just busting at the seams. I don't know how many it was at least 20, and it's a lot. And it's a little unnerving too, as a parent, when you go to drop off or you go to pick up, and you're like, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So I just think that just some understanding of, just because the snapshot that you may see when you drop your kids off at any given classroom, it's maybe not the whole picture.
That's right. So a couple of things with that. One is what you just said. Like, we can't divide, if there's 100 kids, we can't divide them up. Okay, well, 20 go here, 20 go. We can't do that. It's age divided. And it, from Sunday to Sunday, as you know, it varies from room to room. The other thing is, on every Sunday, we're already divided because we've got 4th and 5th graders that by need have to meet in the shed. When we built this building, we knew that our kids' ministry space would need to be expanded at some point. We would have loved to have built bigger. We just couldn't afford it. And so the way we designed it is to be able to add on the way that we are going to be adding on towards the back. The other component of all that is life group space. And we would, ideally, I think we all say, we wish all of our life groups could meet in homes. Well, when you have 20 people in your life group, because life groups grow, as we love them growing, that reduces the amount of homes that you can meet in. So there is a need there, even if I don't always see it when I drop my children off.
Most people know, some may not, we are now in Camden.
Yeah.
We have CCC Camden now. So where does CCC Camden fit into this campaign?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of explanation as well. Again, CCC Camden really started meeting on Sunday mornings this past fall. We was doing it a little bit over the summer, but we kind of opened it up to people in the fall. We meet in our office building that is there. CCC Camden, our desire is that CCC Camden, at some day, sooner more than later, will be autonomous, meaning they'll be self-funded, they'll be self-governed, and they will be, in many ways, like a colleague of ours. We would, in essence, be sister churches. Right now, we're not sisters. We're a plant. We've planted them. So they're really it's almost like a parent-child relationship. And so we fund a lot to get them on their feet. A lot of the big expenses that Camden will face are right around the corner. Currently, we have funded CCC Camden out of our own expenses here. We knew that when CCC Camden would plant, we needed to do a capital campaign to help raise money for that. And so this is part of that. Right around the corner for Camden, they're going to move into an elementary school. They're going to have to buy equipment. They're going to have to buy a trailer, a variety of other things. We just would like to give them a boost. We're not their sugar daddy. And they know that, hey, in very soon time, they'll start covering more and more of their own expenses. But we're so excited because the stories that come out of Camden are really good, and it will only increase. Yeah.
So I think that some people will say, I already give to the church. I already tithe, and maybe you give over, the 10% or whatever. Can I just take what I'm tithing and move it into this Ripple campaign.
And if somebody does that, it's not like we're going to go to them and say, you can't do that. So feasibly, they can do that. What it does, though, on any given year, and this past year, 2023, was very much like this, the expenses, operating expenses for CCC Sumter are very, very close to the giving that comes to CCC Sumter. And if I'm a person, and I do, we give to CCC Sumter. We also give to our old campaign. But if I decide I'm just going to allocate more of my money that normally goes to the operating expenses, and I'm going to allocate that to the building campaign, I handicap our operations. Really what that means is I'm effectively reducing what we can do in ministry. Let me address that, like people that I have really never given to CCC, and I want to start, can I just do that all towards the building, to the ripple effect? I wouldn't say you can't do that, but I would really encourage people that have never given and they're going to start giving now to at least make part of that the operating expenses of CCC Sumter, because those are going to go on forever.
That's right. And those, as we continue to grow, God continues to bring people to this church.
Right.
The operating budget is going to continue to grow as well. So we don't want to ruin that.
Yeah. And I have a lot of faith in the people of CCC Sumter that, hey, listen, people give as God leads them. We just would discourage people from saying, well, I can't give anymore, but I know this is a need. Let me just give it to the building, when that hurts ministry in the long run for us.
So involved with that, involved with people giving, we're going to have a pledge card of some type, correct?
Yeah.
Why do you have to have a pledge card? Why do we need a pledge card?
Yeah, and I think, and I, even between the three of us, I think if we had a discussion of how important are these little commitment cards and covenant cards, we probably have different feels about that. Can people give without making a covenant? Absolutely. Will people give without giving a covenant? Well, if it's been like any of our last campaigns, yes. We have typically gotten more in than people that have covenanted for. But what this does, it lets us see, can we even do this? Because if people don't fill this out and make a covenant to give, and we don't think we'll have the funds to do it, we won't do it. We're not going to take a monster big short-term loan debt thinking we might not get this paid off in 3 years. So this is hugely important. It's not a vote, but it is an indication of, can we pull this?
That will be our plumb line.
It really will be our plumb line. We'll have to make some decisions. And I'm excited because I feel like the overall load on people to do not only this and to pay for what we're going to do, but to also take care of some of our current debt is exciting to see what will happen.
Well, I know that as I brought a lot of questions to you and to some of our elders and to Roby, it was so encouraging to hear your guys' plan and your vision, and not just for the future, but how well you've stewarded the giving that has been done over time. So I just appreciated your transparency with which you've answered my personal questions, and I hope our congregation feels that as well.
Well, I'm blessed because it is really interesting to be, we're on our 10th year, and as I look at just the leadership spiritually of the elders, and I also look at this leadership in stewardship, there's a lot of wisdom. Do we make all decisions perfectly? No. But there's a lot of trust and a lot of wisdom. And so, I'm in agreement with you very much on that. I would say this, that, if people have other questions, and certainly people can have questions, they can contact any of the elders. You can email me personally as well. And then on January 29th, it's a Monday night, for people that might have, I have some questions, but I'd love to address these personally. By all means, come on out. We'll show this video again and then take some personal questions that might be in addition to what we've covered.
And Mark, I would like to thank the people of CCC. I was involved with the last campaign, and they're giving people here. People are generous, and I have no doubt that they will be again. And I just think if families will prayerfully consider this, I think the campaign will be another success. We've always met it or come very close, and I have no doubt that we will again. Once people grasp the need and see the invitation that you've offered, I'm confident that we'll do it again.
Amen. Exciting days ahead. Yeah.